Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all our friends here and around the world. My name is Anthony Ray. Welcome to another live stream on the Ray Law International channel. Just want to say thank you for joining us. It's so good to have you here. We have a lot to cover in a short amount of time. If we don't cover everything, don't worry. Please reach out to us. We update and we're dealing with the changes in immigration law here in the US on a daily, weekly basis. So we're here to help. So if we don't cover everything today, or if your question or questions are not answered, feel free to reach out to us and we'd be more than happy to help out. So we're going to make sure that everything is working on our end from a technical side. Let me see. Mic is good. Video is good. And I believe the audio is good as well. So wonderful. Everything checks out. If there are any technical difficulties, we apologize. Sometimes the software that we use switches the mics or makes some, disconnects us, but we'll get right back into it. So today we have a really interesting topic, something that everyone thinks is straightforward and easy. Of course, the new administration is complicating a lot of what used to be normal and streamlined. And honestly, we've had no issues or problems. One of the things many older people would say, if it's not broke, no need to fix it. And this is one area that we'll talk about where it didn't need fixing. It should have just stayed the same. But anyways, if you're joining us, just joining us, feel free to put in the chat wherever you're logged in from to let us know where you're from. We have people from Asia, from Europe, from within the US. Wherever you're from, we want to thank you for joining us, and we look forward to helping you. And hopefully today's topic is going to be really insightful. There's just so much going on. So as we get started, we're going to give people another 30 seconds or so to get connected so that we can get started. We're going to start with some immigration updates, and boy, do we have some immigration updates for you guys today. Right now, I think we're just going to update you on about 7 of them, and these are critical updates. A lot of times, the Google or the general news doesn't cover all of these fine, detailed changes that's going to impact you, your company, your application. So you really want to pay attention as we talk about these updates. All right. If we have anyone visiting, go ahead and let us know where you're connecting or you're tuning in from. We love to hear from you. If you have immigration questions, just like it says in the little bar below as it streams by, go ahead, put those questions in in the question box, and we will respond to those. If we don't get to them today, we'll definitely follow up and get responses to you. However, now's your time, not just to listen to an immigration attorney or an expert in the immigration field, but also to see, hey, you know what? I got this situation. Even if it's off topic, go ahead, let us know what's on your mind, what your concerns are, what your fears are, and we're here to help. All right. So we're going to start with updates, and then we're going to jump into our topic for today. The first and very, very important thing everyone must know, it's coming up very quickly, October 28th. Mark that on your calendar. If you're in immigration at all, whether employment-based, family-based, it doesn't matter. October 28th is what you need to mark on your calendar. And let me see, October 28th is going to be actually a Tuesday. I don't know why they chose Tuesday. But October 28th is when the USCIS will only accept ACH debit transactions on Form G1650. Okay, that's ACH debit transaction. So debit cards or ACH through your bank account through Form G1650, 1650, or by credit card payments using Form G1440. Again, very important. No more checks, cashier's checks, or money orders. All that is going to the wayside. A lot of us younger individuals, we're used to that. For those who are very accustomed to paying things by cash or opening up that personal checkbook and writing checks, those days are all but gone. You have a few more weeks before we hit that Tuesday, October 28th date. Let me double check. Yes, it is a Tuesday. Again, I don't know why they chose a Tuesday instead of a Monday, but they did. So, ACH debit transactions and um, and that's on Form G141650, and then credit card payments using Form G1450. Make sure you check those out and you complete it properly and sign it. Now, one of the things that we have found, which is very interesting on this update, and then we'll jump to the next, is you have to be careful. You need to make sure you talk to your credit card or your bank institution to let them know that they could be getting a charge from the USCIS. All too often, what we have found is the government will run your card and it will be flagged as someone trying, as a scam, or someone's trying to misuse your card without your authorization, and you're going to get notification. And then, normally I use Chase Bank sometimes, and it'll say, whoops, we denied that transaction. If this is okay, hit yes, and then tell that person to reapply. Well, it would be great if you could call the USCIS to say, hey, run my card again. But there is no process or protocol. So the problem you have with this process is, will they run it again at some point? Is it going to be an hour later, a day later, or will they just plain out reject it and send it back to you? That's the problem with this process. We have very little communication with the USCIS, and the intake team that's processing payments for all these applications. This is definitely going to be a sore spot. Now, this also is the reason you don't want to wait to the last minute to file an application. Okay, so if your case gets denied and it's rejected, it may take anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks to get your rejected application back. You got to pack it up again and resubmit it. Now, there are ways to address this, but it's going to cause a lot of unnecessary stress and anxiety. And typically what we have done, even though this is an option for many of our clients, we have encouraged them to use a cashier's check, or a check or a money order, just so the case moves quickly and there's no delay in their process or so there's no unnecessary stress. So this is all implemented from Tuesday, October 28, 2025. Make sure you have the right form for the card or what you're using for it. Don't mix them up, okay? All right, that's a lot. It's very, very important. Next, for all those people who are applying for their immigrant visa applications abroad with the Department of State, no more resident shopping. You can't go around. You have to choose the embassy that's closest to your residence, okay? Up until now, you could, once you have an immigrant visa, you normally could go or select your embassy to get processed, or even a different country. Now the government is limiting that to your country of residence. So here's another limitation that may cause delays, so be mindful of that. That's going to be effective November 1st, 2025. So if you have an immigrant visa application that you are submitting from now until then, be mindful of that. Make sure you put the correct U.S. embassy that you would like to process your immigrant visa. Now, for those out there who don't know what an immigrant visa is, it's basically getting your green card outside the U.S. Basically, an immigrant petition is filed here in the U.S. That may be an I-130 for family-based cases. It may be an I-140 for employment-based cases. And then the next step is for you to get your green card. If you're in the U.S., we call that adjustment of status. If you're outside the U.S., you get an immigrant visa. That's what we're talking about here. If you're outside the U.S. And you're getting your immigrant visa abroad, you have to use the consulate that's associated with your residence. Now, Thankfully, this is only limited to immigrant visas. This will be a huge game changer if they limit it to non-immigrant visas, which they have not yet. But keep that in mind, keep watch, because if they limit that, then everyone's going to be going back to their home country where they lived in that particular area or the jurisdiction of that U.S. embassy or consulate to process your visa. Okay, so very important. Check us out. If you need to reach out to us, we'd be more than happy to make sure that your case is not going to be delayed or rejected because you're in the wrong location. Now, the next one is this was put out on June 4th, 2025. The Department of State put out a memo or guidance, and it's an exception for certain minorities in Iran. So if you're not familiar, earlier this year, the administration put a travel ban, or not a travel ban, but just an immigration visa ban on anyone from Iran. Well, now they're making exceptions to those rules, and there's a long list of ethnic minorities that may qualify. It's not going to be an easy process, ladies and gentlemen. It is not. So even though there are exceptions, you're going to have to go through and prove that you fit within one of these ethnic minorities. And there's a whole list of them. I'm not going to go through them because I'll probably mispronounce them, but there's a whole list. Contact us if you are in Iran and you feel that you're an ethnic minority that fits into one of these categories. Then there may be an exception. It will not be quick. Nothing is quick with the USCIS or Department of State or the immigration process. This is not Amazon. There is no, USCIS Prime to get your visa any quicker. So make sure you reach out to us to see if you do in fact qualify, and then we can start working and helping you through that process. Now, this really focuses on immigrant visas, okay? Immigrant visas, again, are those individuals applying for a green card abroad, meaning they already have an approved immigrant petition, I-130. They may also have a fiancé petition, I-129F, or they may have an employment-based immigrant petition, I-140. If you have one of those, then you would be applying for your immigrant visa abroad. You could apply for your immigrant visa abroad. Depends on where you're at the time. So check with us to see if you fit within one of those groups. All right, guys. Next, 4 quick ones, and then we'll jump into our topic. We're moving along. Again, if you guys have any questions, put them in the comments or chat. Let us know what's on your mind. Are you okay with what's going on with immigration in the U.S.? Are you stressed out? Do you know friends and family who've been detained? Where do you think U.S. immigration is going? Do you feel that we're going to be isolated and no one's going to, people are going to stop coming to the U.S.? Or do you think nothing's really changed and everything is moving forward? So as we move on into the year, I think we'll start to see the impact of some of the immigration changes that have been made. And we're going to have to look at that and see how it impacts you, us, and everyone in the U.S. So the next 4 things, real quick. The USCIS put out a memo that now USCIS agents, USCIS agents are now authorized to arrest, and get this, actually they're special agents, are authorized to arrest and use deadly force. Remember, we are talking about immigration here. We're just talking about asking for a government benefit. Not sure why USCIS needs to arrest. That's usually taken care of by ICE or CBP and other law enforcement. Like like I heard on one of the podcasts or news reports, it's going to be interesting how these USCIS officers are going to be trained to do this. If you can imagine, you have a couple married and they go in, everything is going well, and then the officer then arrests the foreign national. What does that look like? How do they take them to detention? Are they authorized? Are they following due process? Are the rights being violated? There are so many things that are going to come up through this policy and proclamation. So again, USCIS will have special agents that can arrest and detain, and if necessarily, you know, use deadly force. Remember, we are filing for immigration benefits. No criminal action has happened yet today, but that's the authority that has been granted. In addition, you may have heard that the current administration is looking to expand the military crackdown throughout the U.S. They have them in LA. They had talked about doing Chicago. That's still not totally off the table, just been delayed. But now you hear other cities like Baltimore and New Orleans, and I've heard Memphis, Tennessee. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. Every week we get a new city. We'll see how the administration enforces this and how the administration will be using our precious resources to help the U.S. citizens. Okay. And next, this is another serious one regarding mandatory detention. There's a recent BIA ruling that said immigrants who come into the United States unlawfully, that means without inspection, okay? If you snuck into the United States or got smuggled into the US or something to that effect, and you did not go through or see an immigration officer, you are considered to be in the United States unlawfully. And this key is you crossed unlawfully, okay? There are people who are here who overstay their status. They're unlawful as well. It does not appear that this is speaking to those individuals. It's really focused on those people who cross the border either from Canada or Mexico unlawfully and are still here in the US. This new BIA says that under the USCIS, I'm sorry, not the USCIS, the government can go ahead and detain or cause mandatory detention. There's a lot going on about mandatory detention. The Supreme Court has, which we'll talk about next, has really allowed this to persist. You can start to see hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people being detained in these facilities. And right now, you don't even have to commit a crime. You just have to be here unlawfully. How far the government takes this, we don't know. They're arresting U.S. citizens as well. So we are really at the mercy of the people who are protesting, and hopefully the government will actually do something. The Supreme Court appears to not be taking action to protect due process for anybody. So it's going to be interesting to see how this is implemented and how many more people are detained. To give you an example, I was in immigration court the other day, and the detained document was insane for one judge. I would say at least for one judge, I want to say there was at least 50 detained people. In our area, there's a lot of people from Mexico and Colombia. Obviously, you can think of those individuals that were on TPS and are no longer, those individuals that may be targeted or in detention. Also, there's people from all over from various countries, who were on that list. But the dockets are insane. On the non-detained, people who are not in detention, those cases are, generally speaking, are taking 3 years out. They're scheduling people for 2028. And the more and more people that we detain, the longer that gets. So detention is really not solving the process or making the situation better. If you have thoughts or ideas of how to make this process better, let us know. There's also the whole detention thing of firing a lot of immigration judges that, may have been actually doing the right thing, but they were approving too many cases and now they've lost their jobs. So, and the new people coming in, are they trained? Do they know anything about immigration law? What I found is some of these newer immigration officers, they don't know the law. They're not familiar. And that's why having an immigration attorney with you who knows the law can stand up and be professional and respectful to the immigration officer and say, no, they're not unlawful. They timely filed their application to adjust the status, and based off of that, they're not unlawful. They're here lawfully until there's adjudication, until their case is approved. So many people are uninformed about what happens to your status when certain applications are filed and when they need to be filed. And nowadays, with the immigration bringing on a lot of people who are inexperienced and don't know the law, it's incumbent upon you to get an immigration expert like myself to be with you. Yes, it costs money. Yes, a brother and sister 5 years ago did it on their own. Since February of this year, the world in immigration, U.S. immigration, has been completely flipped upside down. And the things that used to be easy are no longer, which we'll talk about today when we talk about naturalization. And finally, and we're just still on our updates. Wow. Okay. We're going to have to move along. Again, if you have questions, put them in the chat. Let me know what's on your mind or thoughts or comments. Maybe you have a different opinion. That's perfectly okay. We want to hear opinions from both sides in order to make sure that we completely understand the situation that people are going through and what the immigration system is under. Now, finally, actually, two more things. One, the Supreme Court said that we can now discriminate. Um, the government can now discriminate when they're racially profiling. So if they see a person of color, they can go pick them up, ask them about whether, I'm a U.S. citizen or not. And if I don't have documentation, theoretically, they're okay to detain me and put me in detention until they figure out whether I'm a U.S. citizen, green card holder, or lawfully authorized to be in the United States. We are now at that state. The the Supreme Court has sanctioned that, and we're going to see in the next weeks how the government implements this new authority that they have. One of the commentators that mentioned it's okay to discriminate when it comes to immigration and profiling, which can easily be, discriminated against U.S. citizens. Don't think that what is happening is just limited to immigration. Once this authority is expanded to U.S. citizens, there's nothing to limit it just to foreign nationals. It can be used against anyone. But it's very important to make sure that for those foreign nationals, yes, a lot of people are saying, carry your green card, carry your birth certificate, carry your passport. Unfortunately, it looks like we're heading to those days where we're going to have to carry that identification so that we're not erroneously detained, even if we've done nothing wrong. Okay, just because the color of your skin or lack thereof, or the way you look or what you speak, those factors can be taken um, into into the consideration when ICE and their counterparts go out and arrest people. And finally, um, there's a new policy memo which I want to read. Sorry, it's the immigration. I want to say the employment side of the immigration unit, more probably the Department of Labor rather than immigration. They are now putting on a memo that targets for completing all worksite enforcement, employer sanctions, and document fraud cases within 450 days. What that means is for you employees out there that have violated immigration cases or under investigation, they're stepping those up because they want to now come after the employers to make sure that the employers are not hiring foreign nationals who are not authorized to work in the U.S. or doing something illegal when they hire people. And then in addition to that, they want 95% of unfair immigration-related employment practice cases resolved within 510 days of filing. So I think there was some people against Tesla that was challenging and saying it was some unfair immigration-related employment practice dealing with H-1Bs. There's an article out there, check that out. All to say, immigration sort of is this vehicle for the testing of many of our constitutional rights, whether that's free speech, probable cause, due process. Be mindful as we jump into our topic today. All right, that took some time. I apologize. There's just so much important immigration changes that are going on that you need to be aware of. And we take it very seriously that we want to make sure that you're informed and that you, your clients, yourselves are protected. All right. So, now we're going to take off this and we're going to share our screen as we jump into our topic for today. Um, this is very, very important regarding naturalization. In the past, under the old system, naturalization process was fairly straightforward. Most people could do it on their own and with little to no issues. That has all changed now. And we're going to talk about that and how it has changed. So, if you don't know, naturalization is the process of becoming a U.S. citizen. It's one of the most important things that, and along the immigrant journey, it's so important. However, there's been a couple major changes, and those two major changes. Hold on, just a second. Let me move my slide to the next one. Okay. So in 2025, just recently in August, there's been two new challenges that have sort of been reinstated into the naturalization process. They've always been there, just reinstated and reinforced, which adds risk to the naturalization process. The first of these changes is sort of the re-implementation of a stricter standard for good moral character evaluations. So, what the USCIS is doing, we're going to talk about this, is one of the requirements for becoming a US citizen is you have to be a person of good moral character. And then the second thing is personal investigations of the applicants. Okay. And what we're going to talk today in today's video is what those changes are, how they impact your naturalization application, and why it's so critical to have an immigration professional as myself protect your future as we go through this process. So, good moral character. Everyone says, I'm a good person, I didn't do anything bad. Or we often get this where when they were young, they did a bad thing. Maybe it may be breaking and entering or retail fraud or something minor, maybe marijuana or something along a small amount of marijuana. And now they're in their 50s, 60s, 70s, even 80s. And they think, that's all behind me. I've been forgiven. Even at the state level, the state may have forgiven you. The state may have even expunged or erased it from the record so that, everyday people cannot see that you have a criminal record. But with the USCIS, that's all changed. So with the new good moral character, it's a higher standard. Before, under the old system, they could only look back about 5 years, okay? And 3 years if you're married, if you applied under the marriage to a U.S. citizen category, so 5 or 3 years. Now, with this new policy, they can look back as far as they like. And that's the problem with this, with this change. They can go back from when you were a kid. And all of this is anything, old mistakes. It may not be criminal. It may be, inadvertently registered to vote. You didn't know. And then you changed it. Or it may be something you put falsely in an application that you priorly filed, or maybe your attorney did. All of this can come back to haunt you, even if it's 10 or 15 years ago. Non-criminal things, let's say you're not paying child support or you have outstanding child support. We've had a couple where some people had like $200,000 in unpaid child support and they're trying to get an immigration benefit, and that was a huge roadblock for them. Next, it could be unpaid taxes. You got to pay Uncle Sam, and also maybe you did not register for selective service if that applies for you. Any of these things may impact your good moral character as you apply. You may not think it's very serious because it's not a crime, but it will impact your application going forward. Also, in addition, subjectivity reigns. Basically, the officer has wide discretion, um, to make a decision on your application. And this is why it's so important that, you have a professional like myself, like Raylon or National, in order to prepare for this. We'll talk about how we're going to help you do that, but to prepare so that you don't end up having a denied application and then coming to us and asking us to fix a problem that may have been addressed prior to application. Let's see, what else did we? I also wanted to make sure. Exactly, as I mentioned, big change that can review your entire past. Some of the things they're looking for, as we just talked about, criminal history, taxes, selective service, lifestyle and conduct issues. They're going to check your social media. Everyone knows that now. So you're going to have to be careful about how you voice, if you're a protester, you need to be careful of how you protest and who you're protesting for. There's many ways to protest. Just make sure it may not be on social media in a certain way. It's a impact on free speech, but the Supreme Court is not really holding up our First Amendments when it comes to free speech, so you have to be careful. In addition, mistakes, simple mistakes, or things you forgot to fill in. You may say, "Oh, it's just a simple mistake," or as my kids used to say, "My bad," or that doesn't work in the immigration process. It could be seen as misrepresentation or fraud, and then that's going to cause your case to be denied. All right, we talked about broad discretion. Because of this increase in process, we're going to see longer delays, higher denial rates for naturalization, and more stress for individuals. Next, what else is changing? The second thing that's changing is USCIS in-person field investigations. Basically, what this is it's always been on the books, but the USCIS didn't have the resources. I don't think they do now, but they can go out and do a home visit, see if all the information in your application is correct and true. So you can expect or let people know. And a lot of people want to keep the naturalization process secret. And I've had some clients say, "Oh, don't tell anyone I'm becoming a U.S. citizen for whatever reason," or their employer. But the USCIS could come and ask people in your neighborhood. They can come to your house, talk to your spouse. If your naturalization is based off of marriage, the 3 year, if you want to get your citizenship in 3 years, is based off of marriage, they can come and interview your spouse. They'll check your social media and check with your employer to check about your good moral character and whether there's anything that is absent from your application that is important to the USCIS. So be mindful of that. Naturalization is no longer a simple process. Some of the risk, privacy concerns, they're going to go into stuff that you think is, why do they need to know that? It's not on the application. Small errors can be red flags, and then we can expect longer delays and more denials. I prefer not to deal with denials. It becomes more expensive for us, and there may be limitations. I always say it's important that filing right the first time is the best thing you can do. Again, is it going to cost you money? Yes, but in the long run, it's going to save you time, stress, and delays in becoming a U.S. citizen. Now, here's the problem with both of these. Now, both of these individually are very problematic, but we're combining both of these. When we combine both of them, we're really going to see a lot more in delays, denials, and even the potential risk of those people who are in violation of removals. Crimes such as marijuana, it's still a federal crime. Depending on the crime, it may not only get your naturalization application denied, but it could also put you in removal proceedings, which will cost you tens of thousands of dollars, which you could have avoided by reaching out to us and talking to us to resolve that issue or to address it so that it doesn't become a problem. All right, things such as old misdemeanors or inconsistent job histories, raise risk of, of denials. Well, I didn't put that job down because I only worked there for a day. It's important. Okay? Government has access to everything. You want to make sure you disclose everything. All right. So, why legal help is critical? Um, you know, citizenship, U.S. immigration is not what it used to be, even when you compare it to last year. More denials, mistakes are detrimental. We are dealing with numerous cases where minor mistakes, small oversights are devastating to people's futures. Now, we didn't create them. People come to us after the fact because either they have an attorney that is not accountable or is doing what should be done in the interests of the foreign national. Additionally, the USCIS is now going to have broad discretion on these two issues of whether they're going to approve or deny. You may think you have a slam dunk case. However, it may be one of these minor things that we talked about today, and your naturalization gets denied, and you go back and say, well, Sally got hers approved last week, but mine's didn't. Because of this, you're going to see a lot of inconsistencies in the decision making by the USCIS. There's no way for you to compare yourself to other people when there's this subjective broad standard. One USCIS officer is going to look at the same thing and say it's approvable. The other is going to look at that and say that disqualifies you for U.S. citizenship. So if you decide to hire Ray Law, how do we help? Again, if you have questions, put them in the chat. But how do we help? We're going to screen and go through your entire background and your prior cases to make sure there are no red flags. We do that naturally on all our cases, but especially more so here in naturalization because of the high risk of you being put in removal proceedings if there is something negative. All too often, people fail to disclose, hey, previously I entered the U.S. illegally, but now I came in legally and I'm doing the process right. Those sort of things, while it seems are minor because you are actually ultimately allowed in the U.S., may be problematic. If there are investigations or for the immigration interview, we prepare our clients, what to say. If your employer is going to be reached out to, or family members or neighbors, we can help prepare them, give them information so they know how to properly respond to USCIS so that it doesn't negatively impact your case. Now, all too often I was in the USCIS immigration office, and it's all how that officer asked the question. And we can still get the same information, but with a different slant or a different phrasing. So whoever receives those questions, whether it's family, neighbors, employer, or who else, or communities, you need to make sure that they are aware of how this may impact your case. We also help if there are issues such as, let's say you had a prior misdemeanor on your record, we can prepare you to show how to overcome those good moral character challenges that you're going to need to overcome in order to get your U.S. citizenship. And more importantly, by having us present, we're going to protect your rights. Whether it's due process, probable cause, or whatever it may be, we're going to make sure that things are done right when we are present helping you through the process. You do not, for citizenship, after coming this far through your immigration journey, want to throw it all away and gamble that with a system that's so subjective, it's not logical, it's not rational or reasonable. We see this every day. We see how people are being treated. We do not want you to be a victim of our U.S. immigration system. Call us today at 888-401-1016 so that we can schedule a time to meet with me so that we can talk to you about how to protect your future. Are there any other questions before we wrap up? That's the main thing. So good moral character and in-person personal investigations for naturalization are here. Tell us if you or any of your friends have experienced this already, and we're going to update you as we go throughout the year and hear more and more cases. Any questions? I don't see any questions in the chats. Feel free to reach out to us directly. Again, the number is going to be on the screen, but that number is 888-401-1016. Until next time, stay informed, stay educated, and stay on the right immigration path. Thank you for joining us today. Bye for now.